We are standing at a threshold unlike any in human history. For millennia, the human genome, the blueprint of life itself, was an untouchable mystery, written in a language we could only observe. Now, we not only read it, we edit it. With tools like CRISPR, our species has moved from interpreting nature's code to actively rewriting it. At first, the focus was simple: correcting mutations, preventing hereditary disease, and mending broken strands of DNA. But progress rarely stops at its first victory. Every unlocked door leads to another. Every what-if becomes a why-not. Gene editing's promise. 115 to 240. Gene editing offers breathtaking hope, eradicating sickle cell anemia from future generations, making us resistant to viruses that have plagued us for centuries, even reversing aspects of aging at the cellular level. These are not dreams. They are active research fields right now. In hospitals and labs, the impossible is becoming routine. Lives are being extended, pain is being prevented, and parents imagine futures for their children free from the genetic chains of the past. But there's a quiet truth that shadows every breakthrough. Just because we can does not mean we should. The step into Chimerism to 242 for 20. From gene editing, the path to Chimerism. The merging of genetic material from two different organisms was almost inevitable. In nature, chimeras already exists in rare forms. But in controlled research, the concept has grown far more deliberate. Human cells have been introduced into animal embryos, not to create creatures of myth, but to grow human-compatible organs for transplant, potentially ending the shortage that costs thousands of lives each year. Imagine a patient needing a new heart, receiving one grown inside a living pig, genetically matched to their body so perfectly it would never be rejected. The medical potential is staggering. Yet the closer we get to success, the more urgent the moral questions become. Where does the human end and the animal begin? If an animal contains a significant portion of human DNA, is it still just an animal? And if that line blurs, do our moral obligations blur with it? Crossing humans with animals. 420 to 615. Some researchers have pushed further, exploring human-animal hybrids beyond just organ harvesting. Brain tissue, nerve cells, even reproductive material have been part of experimental chimeras in controlled studies. The goals vary. Studying neurological diseases that only affect humans. Understanding embryonic development at its most fundamental level. Creating test models for medicines and treatments that are more accurate than current animal trials. Yet here we encounter the line we cannot see. The moment when blending species becomes not a tool for healing, but an act of redefining creation itself. If a creature could think, reason, or feel on a level approaching our own, how should it be treated? As property, as an experiment, or as a new form of life with its own moral worth? The questions are not new. They echo ancient concerns. The book of Leviticus, for example, contains laws that forbid the mixing of kinds in livestock and planting. Leviticus 19:19. These commands were more than agricultural instructions. They reflected an order to respect the boundaries God had set in creation. Genesis speaks of each thing reproducing after its kind, a rhythm in the fabric of life. When we splice, merge, and rewrite without limits, we risk pulling at that fabric in ways we may not be able to repair. Biblical parallels, 6:15 to 8 o'clock. The Tower of Babel in Genesis 11 tells the story of human ambition reaching skyward. Not because building was evil, but because it came from a desire to replace God, to control destiny apart from Him. The result was confusion and scattering, a reminder that unchecked human pride leads to disorder. Gene editing and chimerism are not evil in themselves. In fact, they may be instruments of mercy, healing, and compassion when guided by humility and wisdom. But history warns us, when humanity forgets its role as steward and begins to act as owner, the outcome is rarely what we intended. In Revelation 21:5, God declares, "Behold, I am making all things new." Notice, He makes all things new. The biblical narrative affirms that renewal is part of God's nature. But when we take renewal entirely into our own hands, Apart from his will, the story can shift from creation to corruption. Ethical crossroads to 8 o'clock to 9:15. The debate is not simply scientific. It is moral, spiritual, and deeply human. The next few decades could see children born with genetic enhancements, animals with human-like intelligence, entire species altered to fit human needs. The danger is not only in what we create, but in what we become while creating it. Technology changes us long before it changes the world around us. Our call is not to reject progress, but to shape it with reverence. To ask, not just can we, but should we? And why? To remember that wisdom is not the same as knowledge, and that the Creator's design may hold complexities we do not yet understand. Close in reflection, minus 9:15 to 10 o'clock in the end. This is not a story about science alone. It is about stewardship. The ability to alter life is a gift that demands the highest humility. We may hold the tools to rewrite the code of life, but the moral code we follow will determine whether the future we build is one of healing or hubris. Perhaps the real question is not how far we can go, but how closely we can walk with the one who set the boundaries of life itself. For it is written in Proverbs 9:10, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." The future will be written, whether in a lab or in our hearts. The question is, whose hand will guide the pen?